All right, all right, all right. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning from my end, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome, welcome to the Kuwo Conversations. So, this has been long coming, and I'm excited that we are here today. We will have some quick housekeeping. And if you are watching the show, please take a moment to share it. But also, welcome, and I hope we can have a good conversation today. We're going to give about a few minutes to allow people to join as we get more and more people coming on. But also, I encourage you to say hello if you're watching the show, because I would like to send you a shout out. You are part of history. This is our first ever edition of the Kuwo Conversation. My name is Leo Napolo Johnson. Many of you know me. I am, I wear many different hats, by the way. I am the founder and executive director of an organization called Empowerment Squared. But I'm also the founder here of the Kuwo movement. And as we gradually build up, you will be hearing a lot more about the Kuwo movement. But to give you the setting today, I'm going to be talking to Christopher Wleh Sivili. Many of you may know him from a few years back in Liberia when he had the horrific experience of being brutalized by being part of a student protest against the then government. So I see some people just joining up. Welcome, welcome. I'm going to take a minute to share the show with some of the groups that we're in so others can join. And I encourage you to please do the same as well as we share the show. So let's do that right now. And say hello if you are here, just so we know that you're here and we can be able to recognize you if we can. So let's do the sharing right now. And Christopher is already in the back. My guest is already in the back. So we'll be bringing Chris on shortly. But let's get things going. And I know a lot of you may be wondering, what is the Kuwo movement? So the Kuwo movement is really looking at how do we foster nation building through civic engagement. So coming soon, you'll be hearing about some of the specific projects that we will be doing. And the Kuwo Conversation will be our main channel of disseminating our messages, engaging with the broader public, having very riveting conversations, bringing in interesting guests, and it goes on. I mean, many of you know I do not hold back. I do not mince my words when it comes to what I think, when it comes to my opinions on nation building, on how we should be structuring ourselves to be of positive impact to our communities, to our nation, to the things that we do. So I will waste no much time because we started a bit late. So I apologize to all of you who may have been waiting. We had a little bit of technical setup to do. As you know, this is the first edition of the show. So it was very important for us to get things right. And give me feedback. If you're getting the audio, you're getting the video, and everything is going well from your end, please give us some feedback so we can know how things are working out. But let's get going here. I'm going to bring in my guest, who is Christopher Wleh Sivili. He's joining us all the way from Accra, Ghana. So let's see if we can get Chris into our stream here as we get ready to go. Chris, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm hearing you, sir.
All right, that's great. I can hear you great. Let's see if everyone else can hear you as well. Let's make sure our audio is going good. All right, we can see you. So, Chris, if you just position yourself better, your head is cut off at the top. So maybe you can either put your phone up a bit higher or lower your. There you go. That is great.
Is that okay now?
That is great.
Okay,
Very,
all right.
very great. Thank you. So I'm going to get right into this, Chris, because you and I have been having conversations back and forth. I will let you take the opportunity to introduce yourself so people know who is Christopher Sivili Wleh. Go ahead, please.
So thank you so much. Thank you so much for this unique opportunity. Uh, this is Christopher Wleh Sivili, a former student leader from the University of Liberia and an exile activist and the executive director of the student organized to fight torture and also one of the finalists of this year Kofi Annan Next Gem Democracy Prize in Greeks Athens. So Christopher is a Liberian who is residing in exile due to his view on political stance, due to how he managed to express himself when it comes to corruption, when it comes to bad governance, and when it comes to incompetency and misrule. So, due to our stance on those critical issues, 26th of 2022, that was 2 years ago, we organized one of the peaceful protests in Liberia, in Liberian post-war history. One of the peaceful protests that went down in history. We organized it on our Independence Day, the 175th Independence Day of the country. And unfortunately for us, we got brutalized, we got tortured, we got stripped naked due to people who were supporters and government officials at that time within the Wleh government. So, fortunately for us, after our sad ordeal 2 years ago, we managed to leave the country and went to Sierra Leone for refuge. When we went to Sierra Leone for refuge, we spent like a 2 years in Sierra Leone. We went to the medical hospital in Sierra Leone to get our treatment. Later in Sierra Leone, after we got our treatment from the hospital, we came back to teach in the classroom. So in Sierra Leone, we're also teaching in the classroom because for us, we love to teach. We believe that the African students need to be empowered. And for them to be empowered, they have to be educated. So
Okay.
after we left the hospital,
Yeah.
we begin to teach in the classroom.
Yeah.
We
Chris,
teach SS1, SS2, SS3,
yeah,
and
let
so
me
forth.
hold
So
you.
Chris is a lot.
Yeah. Because I will be going deep into your story. So let me hold you there a little bit because we will be going really, really deep. But thank you for the introduction. So the first thing I would like to ask you, Chris, can you take us back to July 26, 2022? What was the atmosphere like at the protest? And what were you and the other students hoping to achieve at that time by staging this protest?
So Christopher served in many capacities at the University of Liberia within the student movement. And at that time, I was one of the lawmakers within the structure of our party. So we were one of those that agree within one of our meetings to launch a very peaceful protest called Fix the Country. Because we observed that during the regime of President Weah, and we saw a lot of contradictions. At the university, there were contradictions. Lecturers, professors, could just place the marker down because their salary were being delayed. And even at the national level, you saw a lot of extra judicial killing at the national level. And you couldn't get a good report from the police. There has been no investigation of people who got murdered, and there was no report. We saw the four auditors, we saw the three missing box, and we saw a lot of extrajudicial killing in the.
Yeah, as you know, Chris is coming in live from Africa, so we might have him
Very
going in
peaceful
and
on
out.
July 26th.
There we go. Go ahead.
So on July 6th, we decided to raise our argument on July 26th because we believe that that was the time, I mean, diplomats, government officials, the president, lawmakers converged together to see how best to celebrate the country Independence Day. So we felt that it was a moment for us, I mean, to unearth the many contradictions under President Weah. So we choose our location. We even went to the American embassy. We avoided the program ground, where the program was taking place. We avoided it because we never wanted any trouble. Because we believe that to face the country, you must be peaceful. So we went to the American embassy for us to read our petition, I mean, to the American government on July 26th, which marks the 175th Independence Day of the country. But we wrote like 13 counts. It was the 13 counts that we wrote. And within that 13 counts, we were asking the government to look at the university budget. We were asking the government, I mean, look at the university infrastructure. It's appalling. I mean, it is very much deteriorating. So as a government, you gave us free tuition policy, but the infrastructure of the university is deteriorating. So we believe that as a government, you have to focus on the university. That was one of our counts during, I mean, the peaceful protest on July 26, 2022. And when we're also requesting the government to look at the economy. The economy. I mean, the economy was very much battled under President Weah. There was no employment under President Weah. Even though today it's still happening, but under President Weah, when we were still in the country, as student leader, we believe that the economy was very much battled. And as a student of economics, because I was studying economics and political science. So as a student of economics, we believe that the government has an obligation. The government has a responsibility. And the responsibility of the government is to prioritize the economy, is to ensure that the people's dignity is protected.
Yeah.
And
So
that was one of our cons.
yeah. So let me bring you to something, Chris. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Another kind of gain was, I mean, the extrajudicial killing. We're also requesting the government to give us reports on Princess Cooper, give us report on the three missing balls, give us report on the 4 auditors. So all of our counts were in place, and we even wrote the Labyrinth police, informing them that the Student Unification Party, the students will converge on July 26. And what we did on July 26, we brought thousands of people outside, thousands of students. Even our market women were also willing to join us on that day because they felt that our argument was very much valid. The country was in a counterclockwise angle. So unfortunately for us, and that's the point I want to register here. When we say face the country, we did not say CDC face the country. Because don't get me wrong, there are other opposition leaders who were in the national legislature. So it was a holistic call for everybody who were serving in the government at that time. The national legislature, the judiciary, and also the executive. So it was a general call to face the country.
Yeah. So
and unfortunately, go ahead.
No, yeah, I come into the next stage here. So I will set this up nicely. Because I have a question to ask you, Chris. There's been a lot of conversation about the issue of militancy among young people in Liberia. Now, I understand from the 60s, 70s, and 80s, especially in Liberia and on the African continent, there were a lot of freedom movements, freedom fighters, you can name them. From your Nelson Mandela to your Walter Sisulu to your Thomas Sankara, you can name, and the list, Kwame Nkrumah, and the list goes on. But what is your take on the level of heightened militancy among young people in Liberia? I'm not insinuating that that's what you guys were actually doing, but I'm trying to set up my next question here. Because you see young people sometimes get very confrontational. So I just want to get your take. When it comes to the issue of militancy among young people in Liberia, university students, political parties, and the rest of it, what is your take on that?
So basically, I can I can place emphasis on, the students at the University of Liberia because I was there. So the issue of militancy, firstly, we have to register that those students who are on campus, they are not on campus, to raise their life. They are on campus to acquire their education. But unfortunately, it is the conditions, the objective conditions of the country that what can lead, to what normally you see students, can be doing, right? Because if the society is not conducive, the students will not learn better. So the issue of militancy is about the condition of the country. If the country is smooth and public officials are behaving in a well manner, I believe that students will also behave in a kind of well manner. But if the country is harsh and government officials are doing things anyhow, no accountability, no transparency, the student will have no other options. The student has always been peaceful. The students have always been peaceful. There have been no. The students do not control guns. The students do not control weapons. The students only control their pen and paper. That's always been peaceful. So it is the conditions of the society that can make for the students to behave, sometimes in such a barbaric or in such of, militaristic manner. But militarily, the students, do that normally based on the objective conditions of the country. So
Okay.
that's how
Yeah.
I see it because
Yeah.
that's what I do normally.
Yeah.
As someone who is radical, someone who is also wanting to see the betterment of our society, we sometimes go radical because we feel that our leaders cannot listen. They cannot listen to us peacefully. So sometimes we go radical and for them to know that we are serious in our debate. Yeah, or in our
Yeah.
argument.
Yeah, I hear you, Chris. But my man, for me, you know my opinion on this. I believe that just ratchets up the tension even more. But that's a different conversation. We can talk about our disagreement on the role of militancy in post-war Liberia. That's a whole different show by itself. Let's try and focus on our topic here. Could you describe the moment, Chris, when things begin to escalate, especially what you were subjected to? Can you take us a little bit on that journey of what was happening at that time when you noticed that things had gone the other way and you were being chased, you were being attacked? Tell us what went through your mind at that moment when you realized that, oh, hell is about to break loose, and to the point where some of us thought you were actually dead from watching the videos and what was going on. Take us there. Tell us.
Yeah, so when we went at the American embassy, and for us, we were the organizer. We were, the leaders that organized that peaceful protest called Fix the Country. And unfortunately for us, when those guys came around us to surround us, as a leader, I ran into a place. I ran into a little room. I was into a little room, but it was one of those leaders from the ruling party who saw me running into that little room. So when I entered the little room, that's how the guy came. The guy went in the room, forcefully, and told, because we're two in the room. Interestingly, those guys were having our pictures. They were having the organizer, the leaders on the university campus, our photos. Oh, there's Christopher, there's Sulu. President Wleh gave a free tuition policy. You guys cannot give President Wleh thanks. So I even begged him in a room. I said, oh, my brother, there's Sulu, right? The comment, because I know him also. I know him from CDC. Good. So I was begging him in a room not to allow his bugs or those gangster thugs to enter in a room to come for me. Interestingly, we were two in a room. They allowed the other comer to go. And it was one of me, they tried to, the first thing was, they wanted to cut my tongue from my mouth. But it was the lady whose room I was in, told them that if you want to kill the man, you cannot kill the man in my room. Take the man outside if you want to kill the man.
Chris, hold
And
on.
it was the
Hold
woman,
on.
woman
Hold on.
was
Hold on.
insisting.
Hold on. I don't want you to just skip over that detail. Hold on. Are you saying young people in Liberia who arrived at the scene of the protest. When one of them noticed that you were in that room or saw you entering, came after you and decided in that place that they wanted to cut off your tongue from your mouth. Is that what you're telling me? I think Chris might be frozen there, so let's wait. Because I think this is an important detail. We hear about these things and we just hear it in general. So I think it will be important to lay emphasis on this. But let's wait until we can get Chris back because he kind of froze there. Let me see if we can get him back. Yeah, but again, people, as you hear me asking Chris to take us through his ordeal, because sometimes we sweep these things under the carpet, but we don't pay attention to the important messages that we should be focusing on. And when you hear me ask him about militancy in the country, where people feel that it's okay to use violence to settle problems, where our leaders participate in increasing attention, encouraging young people to go against each other, right? You cannot build a country like that. You cannot solve a problem like that. And as we're hearing Chris talking about how he almost lost his life and some of the details that have come into it. So, Chris is having problem with his phone, and his phone, I think, went off. He was coming in on mobile. So I will keep this conversation going until Chris can come back on. But again, let's get to the crux of the matter. Because Chris made a point that the situation in the country is leading to young people resulting to all kinds of violent tactics or violent approaches to how to solve problem. And this is where some of you will know when people talk about the rule of law and all of that stuff. If we don't take that seriously, people think they can find a way to solve their own problems. They're not going to listen to anybody. And I said this one time and I will repeat it today. People keep saying Liberia is a rich country. That's false. Liberia is not a rich country. Liberia is not a wealthy country. We keep misleading ourselves that because we got gold, we got diamond, we got rubber, we got iron ore, so Liberia is a rich country. Absolutely not, right? It's like saying you have a BMW X6 pack in your yard, right? Brand new. Someone gifted it to you, handed the keys over to you. But you don't have a driver's license. You don't know how to drive. You don't even know that a car is supposed to be used to take you from point A to point B. But you keep telling people you have the most sophisticated means of transport in the country. But we see you on the bus every day. In fact, you cannot even afford a bus ticket to get on the public transport. But you keep telling people you got the most sophisticated and comfortable means of transportation in the country. Let me break it to you. Liberia is not a rich country. If you listen to a young man like Wleh Sivili, you quickly get to realize that Liberia is an extremely poor country because the true wealth of its country lies in the productivity of its citizens. Your ability to get in your BMW X6 and drive it and move from one end of the town to the other, or to use it to run an Uber, or to use it for other, get to work. Do something productive. So let nobody lie to you that we are rich because we got gold under the ground and diamond and rubber and iron ore. No, that's not wealth. You just have potential, but you don't have wealth. Until we can start to invest where it matters. Until we can start to put the emphasis where it matters. Sorry. When I listen to a young man like Wleh Sivili describe the conditions at the University of Liberia, which hasn't changed much. When I listen to someone like him say, went to a peaceful protest and got attacked by a bunch of other young people, and everybody stood by and watched. No police could intervene. We watched the ordeal live on video. And you tell me Liberia is a rich country? The condition of a young man like Christopher and thousands of other young people is proof that Liberia is a poor country. When the entire country is a slum, including where the communities that our presidents, former presidents live in, are all slums, then you cannot convince me that Liberia is a rich country. But we hope that Chris can join us on this again. Let's just keep our fingers crossed so we can keep the conversation going. But this conversation is centering something for me. The issue of militancy in Liberia, the issue of violence that we take for granted. And it's escalating because in the absence of capacity for law enforcement agencies, in the absence of the ability of our governments to ensure the rule of law, to ensure security for citizens, people will resort to their own measures. They will take it into their hands. They will do what they have to do to survive. They will do what they have to do to protect themselves. And it becomes jungle justice for everybody. So recently, while I'm waiting for Chris to come back on, maybe I should ask you this question. The University of Liberia launched a PhD program recently. And some of you that are watching, it would be great to get your comments as well. Please put your questions in the comments, and so we'll be happy to take those questions on. Or share some of your own thoughts, and I will be happy to read them. The University of Liberia recently launched a PhD program. Now, let's take this apart. The current condition of the University of Liberia, I've argued that it should be turned into a technical college or a technical university because it doesn't have the capacity to deliver quality education at the post-secondary level. Now, people quickly get offended and think this is about the students and the young people. No, don't get it twisted. The young people and students at UL, I must give them credit for finding a way in spite of the difficulties to do what they have to do. But I will get to that later. We got Chris back on. So let's bring Chris back in to this conversation. Chris, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
All right, great. Great to have you back here, Chris. So let me get to it right away. I stopped you because I wanted to hear you clearly. You said these young people who came at you in the latest room, one of them whom you could identify, decided that they wanted to cut off your tongue in that room. Did I hear you right?
Yeah, sure.
Tell me, Chris, what went through your mind at that moment?
I mean, honestly, I felt that I could no longer survive. Right? I mean, at that moment, I felt that I should have given my life to God. I mean, to Christ, because I mean, those guys were decisive. Those guys, I mean, they were very, very much clear. I mean, in hurting us, especially for us who picture or who they were having our photos in their pot. So when they saw Craig, I mean, Craig with the bushy hair, I mean, someone who was keeping afro, you know. So, but there's Christopher, a young man who is always critical on President Weah, even though President Weah gave them free tuition policy. You know, so I was very discouraged. But interestingly, it was the lady who was insisting that you cannot kill the man in my room. If you want to kill the man, take the man outside and kill the man. And with God could have it, when they took me outside, that's how they made me. So, and that's how, I mean, it gave you someone to scrape you naked on a camera. I mean, it shows it was very traumatic, psychological, and it is not up to this time. When I try to forget about it, it is quite difficult. It is quite difficult because it was very traumatic. I mean, the guys were decisive. The guys had weapons. Do my back, beating my back. If you look off in the video, you look in my mouth, you will see the blood coming from my mouth, oozing out. Because I was so clear on that day to kill one of us. And unfortunately for me, I was the wolf in the web. And what's happening again, if when I went on the back, most of the hospitals, most of the clinics, they rejected me. I mean, they told me that we can't take care of a situation. The situation is political. They said, oh, my situation is political. Why should you go and protest on July 26th? I mean, your situation cannot be handled in our clinic. And that is how, I mean, the next day I managed to leave the country. And I left the country with heavy pain. I left the country with so much pain.
Chris, hold on. I don't want you to go that far yet. Tell me, in those terrifying moments, Chris, of being attacked, humiliated, like you said, you were literally stripped naked, and every one of us were watching it live around the world. Tens of thousands of people, and knowing that it was being shared. I want to know, Chris, how have you managed emotionally up to the point that you left the country? What does this experience have on you? Like, how has it impacted you? Knowing what you knew and being able to leave Liberia. Now that video is on the internet. People use it, they look at it as much as it. How have you coped emotionally? How have you managed to get yourself together?
To be honest, to be very much sincere with you, I think it is by God's grace I'm living, because since I left the country, I have never gotten a serious counseling. I have never been counseled. Even the medical treatment that I receive, I mean, sometimes bodies can still hurt me. Like my legs, I no longer stand for hours. Before I used to stand for hours, but right now I no longer stand for hours. And again, the reason why Chris is not coming to Liberia, it's not because Chris doesn't want to go back to Liberia. Chris is not coming to Liberia because, I mean, Chris is traumatized. When Chris see a video where he was, I mean, naked, I mean, Chris is traumatized. It brings tears to me, right? It makes me to break down. I was just mean. It makes me to understand that, I mean, for a young treated in such a manner, in his own country, in that kind of manner, and of the, I mean, it's so painful, it's hurtful. I mean, for each time, and that is why I always like to people, right? I mean, good people, because whenever I'm alone, I always feel hurt. I always feel, I mean, traumatized, and I always feel that Chris, I mean, sometimes honestly speaking, right? Sometimes I regret, I mean, why I have to, I mean, to go to do what I did on that day. But sometimes I regret it because I'm a human, right? And interestingly, we have abandoned our education 2 years now. We haven't enrolled to any university 2 years now.
That's why I'm actually coming.
Abandoned our education.
Yeah.
That's my next. So I mean, it's kind of traumatic for us. It's not easy, but by God's grace, we are still moving on. But speaking, it's not easy.
Yeah, thank you. So let me come to this point. You left Liberia. You had to leave. I mean, I'm not going to ask you why you had to leave. That part has to be clear to all of you that are watching this show today. But let me ask you, tell me, in 2 minutes, how has life been in exile since you left Liberia? When you left Liberia, where did you go first? And then where are you now? If you feel comfortable saying it, that's up to you. But how has life been in exile?
Firstly, I would like to appreciate God. God has been so much good, but life in exile has been very difficult, very tough, and very, very strenuous. Interestingly, there are many people we interact with, many people our situation to school political goal, and up to this time, they haven't done anything yet to know if Chris is okay. I can say this for free. Most of the guys 2 years ago who were behind my situation, they no longer know where Chris is residing. When I left the country, I went to Sierra Leone. I was in Sierra Leone. When I went to Sierra Leone, that's where I went at the hospital in Sierra Leone. After my medical treatment in Sierra Leone, I began to reorientate myself because it was difficult. It was tough to leave your own country where you don't have nobody around you. You don't have parents around you. I mean, you left the country at 23. I was 23 years when I left the country. So imagine in that kind of age, in a country, I mean, education, everything abandoned. You can no longer go to school. You can no longer see your parents. You can no longer see your colleagues. I mean, it was up to this time. It is still traumatic for us or for me, you know. So, but when I begin to teach in the classroom, make myself busy. So I went to teach the classroom. I was teaching SS1, SS2, SS3. I was teaching Christian religious study. So it's like was like Bible. So you know, just to make myself, I mean, busy. Honestly speaking, I have never gotten any serious opportunity since my side ordeal. I have not gotten any serious opportunity to calibrate, to rebuild myself up. I mean, to live in an environment. I mean, if you look at Sierra Leone case, Sierra Leone and Liberia is the same hostile environment. The environment in Sierra Leone was also hostile. You know, so being someone who experienced trauma, that kind of environment wasn't good for me. But I just have to be there because that was the only means I had at that time to be in Sierra Leone.
Thank you.
So
Yep.
it
Thank you,
spent two
Chris.
years in Sierra Leone.
Yep.
It was this year when I was selected among thousands of people across the world, young people, for the Kofi Annan Next Gen Democracy Prize, based on my story and based on my script. And that's how a little bit changed my location.
Okay. Thank you. So I will move forward. I'll recognize some of our viewers. I know Samuel Kwashi is watching from Liberia. Edward Brochas, hello, sir. Thank you for joining. Telvi Cole, my own sister here, thank you. Colette Doma, the young diplomat. S. Aaron Wea the third. Horatio Weedall, and the rest of you out there. Say hello. If you want me to send you a shout out, and I will send you a shout out. But let me get back to Chris. So, Chris, now that you are in exile, I'm aware that you have decided to actively seek justice, in your own words, not just for what happened to you, but for thousands of young people who are often subjected. Let me make sure Chris, do we still have you?
Yeah, sure, I'm getting you.
Oh, there you go. We have Chris. Yeah. You've decided to actively seek justice given the situation. I know you've reached out to the Independent Human Rights Commission and the Ministry of Justice. What has that journey been like for you? And what challenges have you faced in this process?
The government in general is interested in giving me justice. You know, what I've observed is that I have been the SG, that is the Solicitor General of the country. I have written the Assistant Minister for Litigation at the Ministry of Justice. I've also written the County Attorney of Ottawa County. You know, I also wrote the Independent Human asking them to ensure that my situation on July 26, 2022, I mean, it should not be swept under the carpet. But the response I got from the Ministry of Justice to the Assistant Minister for Litigation, you know, it was actually discouraging. The guards want me to be in the country. They want me to go back in the country before they can give me justice. Imagine someone who is already traumatized, someone who, I mean, hasn't recalibrated, I mean, his whole life yet, still trying to see how best to, I mean, to fathom on what happened to him, and you are the person to go back, I mean, this place, the same place, he was traumatized, he was actually brutalized, he was actually tortured, asking the man to go back there before they make justice. So I felt that the government, I mean, it's not only me, because even on that day, there were a lot of other young people who got wounded there. So my argument is not about me. It has always been about the general good of the young people, the African young people. And so you can even say, Chris, go back. There are other people who in the country have my witnesses in the country. I have people who are willing to testify in the country. But you wouldn't want me to go back in the country. That's the the only time you can be able to give me justice. And I think it is unfair. I think it is unjust. And this goes to power based on the situation. What happened to us 2 years ago? This current government, they use that as a means to score political goal. But interestingly, for them to give us justice, I think beating around the bush, and they're even telling some of us that we must be able to refile our case. Can you imagine that? So I mean, justice in Liberia, accountability and transparency in Liberia is a problem. And that is why for some of us, we're not giving up. And we believe that there are more things we have to do for the African students. So that's it.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, for those of you who just joining, I'm here with Christopher Wleh Sivili, a former student leader at the University of Liberia, who was one of the organizers of the Fix the Country protests on July 26, 2022, and unfortunately was subject to massive brutality. Many of you know the story, was beaten. In fact, there was an attempt to cut off his tongue thanks to the lady whose room he was hiding in that insisted they must not do it. They must take him out to the public. So Christopher is speaking to us from exile and kind of laying out his ordeal and talking about justice and accountability in Liberia and his quest and the challenges that he's facing right now to get closure and justice. But let me ask you, Chris, do you have a lawyer? Do you have a legal team or someone that's supporting you through this process? Because I know there's been many cases in Liberia looked into, even why people were out of the country. So do you have a legal team or a lawyer that's representing you?
Yeah, sure. I'm having a very good lawyer. I mean, someone who play a very significant role in our legal jurisprudence. I mean, someone who has a very good history. But currently in the U.S., Councilor General Vodia, my legal lawyer, right? So when I received the text, say assistant minister of justice, I forwarded the text to him, and he told me that, as he said, Chris, those guys are not serious, because if they are serious, there are many ways they can be to show that you get justice.
Chris, you cut off there. Did you say you got a text message from the assistant minister of justice? If so, what did that text message say?
The first text, when I wrote him, he told me, I'm of Monrovia. I get back to Monrovia, I will see how best to look into your case. So when he got back to Monrovia, I mean, the following day, he texted me and he told me that very clearly that the only way we can help you, except you return in the country. And he was very much emphatic. His text message was very much emphatic. And that's what I'm angry, right? So I forwarded the message.
Is that the current assistant minister of justice?
Of course.
What's his name?
The current assistant minister, the current assistant minister of justice for litigation at the Ministry of Justice.
What's his name?
Yeah, sure. Is that?
What's his name? The minister's name?
Let me.
That's I can find it. I can find it. Go ahead. Keep going here. I can find it.
Yes.
I can find it, Chris. Keep going ahead.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So in Chris, we can see how best to come in the country. Gigs, you return in the country. That was his word to me. I mean, that was the last message. Then I even sent it to Councilor General Vodia. Councilor General Vodia wrote me back and told me that I should respond to him. So I responded to him back, informing him that I cannot make it to come in the country, because as a matter of fact, I'm still traumatized and I'm trying to to reorientate myself better. So I can go back in Liberia where the country is still the same. The hostility is still on an increase. Violence is still in the country. I mean, there's no accountability in the country. There's no transparency in the country, I can risk my life back in that kind of country. That country is not still safe. People like us who are critical. We know the cities, we know when they're in opposition. They're in opposition, they are always violent. The cities know them. So if you cannot get my life, then you are telling me to go back in the country. I was disservice to me because you have to give me the assurance firstly. Okay, when you come in the country, this is the assurance that the government got for you. But you only wrote me, a random text message and you telling me that I should go back in the country, and that's the only reason why I can be able to get justice.
So
Then
is there,
I feel that the whole government
is there
is
Councillor?
not interested.
Hold on, right there. Is there Councillor Jerry D.K. Galawolo? Assistant Minister of Justice,
Right
Councillor
there.
Jerry
Yeah, yeah.
D.K. Galawolo. He's the Assistant
Galawo,
Minister for
Assistant Minister of
Litigation.
Justice for litigation. Yeah,
Correct.
sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So so he wrote me, and I felt that was a disservice for such a response as assistant minister. And you know my situation, you know my case, you know how horrific my situation was. 2 years now, the government of the CDC couldn't give me justice. And I understand because it was the government who spoke what happened to me. So I knew that I couldn't get justice in the CDC government. So I was not bad off, but the new government that came into power on the basis of transparency, accountability, and justice. I felt that this government could have prioritized my situation and be able to look into it. But when I received the text message from the Assistant Minister for Litigation, I was actually discouraged. And I feel that the government was not interested, or the government was not interested in justice. So up to this time, we are still, our story to other international human rights organizations. We are still, talking to people who, if our country or our government cannot give us justice, but we believe that, the government, the international human rights institutions can give us justice. So interestingly, when I left the hospital, I even did an interview on VOA. I was interviewed on VOA. Mr. Allen Watts. Mr. Allen Watts was the one who recommended me to appear on VOA. So when I appear on VOA and explain my side or due on VOA, and that was led to the sanctioning of Koji, because Koji Hen also was in my situation. So I did all my documentations. I wrote all my articles. I provided all the newspapers. I provided all the links. I took the story. And interestingly, we got justice internationally. It may not be those guys who were involved into it, but those organizers behind the scene, they were the one, that was actually being held responsible. And we know that there will still be,
Yep.
no matter what it takes, how many years it takes, there will still be justice. And we are still moving on. We are still explaining ourselves, narrating our stories, our struggle in exile, and we believe that very soon and one day there will be justice.
Thank you. Yeah, so thank you. So as we wind down here, Chris, I want to move somewhere. Clearly, you've given us your frustration with the government in Liberia about trying to seek justice, and you pretty much, you've been running around the circles, and you've been told that unless you go back to Liberia, there's pretty much nothing they can do about this. But what does closure look like for you? Because usually in these traumatic situations, when they happen, people carry a lot of trauma, and it can affect people in many different ways if there are not, or if there is not closure. In your mind, I want to know, Chris, and those that are listening, and I'm here, and all of us that are thinking, are there any ways that we can engage with you? What is closure for you? What does closure look like? And maybe you've never thought about this, so I'm not going to put you on the spot. If you've never thought about it, it's okay to take your time if you haven't thought about it at another time. But if you have, can you help the audience understand what does closure look like for Christopher Wleh Sivili?
So basically, we have decided to, to re-emphasize our frustration, and we have decided to focus on a new path to inspire the young generation in Africa. So what happened to me was I formulated or I established an institution called Student Organized to Fight Torture. So my current stance or my closure is to revamp, to ensure that my organization that I established, because it is my dream organization, where student organized torture. I believe that what happened to me should happen to any other African student. What happened to me should not happen to any other Liberian students or any other Sierra Leonean students or any other Ghanaian student within the sub-region. So I'm a project. I'm working on a project, and I believe that with some support for international, individuals, I can be able to work on this my institute in a way that I will make myself independent. Because to be honest with you, I don't want government job, even though I have received some offers from government, but I don't need government job, man. And I have to build up myself in a way that my story will not be swept under the carpet. All Africans have to know story, and they have to be encouraged or vetted due to my situation and how I handle it. So I'm working on a whole project. I'm working on a project in Ghana. While in Ghana, I'm doing a project. I'm trying to establish a branch of my institution also in Ghana. One is already in Sierra Leone, because it was in Sierra Leone that I established the project. So I also have some colleagues that are working with me in Sierra Leone. And so right now I'm in Ghana. So my target is establish my institution as well, the branch of Ghana. And also when I go back to Liberia around 2028 or 2029, then I can be able to ensure that I still carry on my project. But honestly speaking,
Yeah.
I'm doing a project based on my institution that I want to build. I'm
Thank you.
help the African students. The African students are still vulnerable. The ones that are confronting, they are vulnerable. The ones that are critical on the government, they are vulnerable. So for me, I came into ESA, see any reputable human rights institution that take ESA students. So for me, I believe that I can go that path. I can go that route, right? I can
Thank you.
take care of ESA students. I can take care of students who have been, harassed, been hijacked, been, harassed by their government. I can take care of them. So it will be in 3 countries within the South region: Sierra Leone, Ghana, and Liberia. So that's what I'm working on currently.
All right. Thank you. So, and congratulations to you. I admire your courage. I admire your resilience that, in spite of your circumstances, and in spite of your own challenges that you've come to face, you're finding a way to support others and not just yourself, even though you yourself, you're still dealing with the same situation. But I want to do some quick recognition here. Again, good Samuel Kwashi is joining us from Liberia. Edward Brochus. Edward, thank you for joining us. My own sister Telvico says, wow. Edward says, Leo, that shows the way just how much this current government is not ready to improve in our beloved country. Telvi says, wow, Liberia. My brother Josiah K. Doma, the young diplomat, let me call his full name. He said, thanks, bro. The name is actually Josiah K. Doma. And as a former student and leader at the University of Liberia, I empathize with a brother. He deserves attention. Telvi say, they're crazy. You don't need to be in Liberia to get justice. The evidence needed to prosecute is available everywhere. And Telvi says again, thanks for sharing your story. Praying for complete restoration. Stay hopeful. So let me come back to you now to close things up here with you, Christopher. I heard you say you have not completed your university study. And by the way, let me recognize Wleh Koboy. My own brother Wleh Koboy is watching. Thank you for joining, Wleh. And Cotto Brown, thank you for joining as well. But Chris, you have not completed your degree yet. And you say you're in the second year at the University of Liberia. Is that a priority for you right now, for people that are listening? If you had an opportunity to complete your studies right now, Is that something that is a priority for you or not at this time?
I mean, wow. Uh, to be honest, Fred, to be honest, the 2 years every graduation that I witnessed at the University of Liberia, I mean, I always feel hurt, right? I always feel that most of my colleagues that we all enrolled at the university with together, I mean, they have graduated. They have graduated. But interestingly for us, our academic studies is in limbo. So, I mean, my priorities is education. My first priorities is to see how best to go to school. I want to go to school and I want to see how best to complete my undergraduate studies. I took all my documents from the day. I have my transcript here. I have everything from the university, yeah. But interestingly, I don't have no support and I don't have no means of enrolling myself in any accredited university to where I am.
Okay.
So it's my priority.
Okay.
It's my priority, and I will appreciate anyone who wants to help. I mean, in the process, because for you to champion social justice, you have to be educated. I mean, you have to know, I mean, the do and the don't. You have to understand certain issues. You have to be very professional enough. And to do so, you have to be equipped academically. So it's my priority. I want to go back to school. It is going to 3 years now. 3 years, I mean, I've been doing self-reading. I have been learning all by myself. I read books all by myself. But I have never entered in any classroom since, I mean, 2 years, going to 3 years now. And I think when I look back, sometimes I feel that I'm a failure, right? Sometimes I feel that like, I make a very serious mistake to jeopardize my academic studies and up to that no opportunity and to see how best to resume or to I mean to read to continue with my academic studies, and I think it's a problem for me. But right now it's my priority. My
Thank you.
first priority is to go back to school.
Yeah.
I still like I mean like a 2 years going there now. I have to go back to school to complete my undergraduate degree in economics. I was doing economics and political science at the University of Liberia. And I mean, I'm still young, very young, at the age of 25. I'm still years old. I have I have the ability to go back to school. I do my best. And even going back to school will also help me, I mean, to recalibrate
Okay.
because I can't be alone. I can't be alone. I need to be around, I mean, a better place. I need to be very, very active. The only reason why you see sometimes I'm still alive because sometimes there can be some situations where I want to commit suicide.
Yep.
Because I mean, sometimes if you're alone, you think that I mean the whole on you, everybody has a ban on you, so you can commit suicide because you are not getting the support that you felt that while championing social justice, and unfortunately you got tortured in the process. You felt that you could have gotten a serious support. I mean, from people who claim to be human rights lawyers and people, I mean, are across the world. But unfortunately, it is on the contracts. It is on the opposite. You are in one. I mean, to even eat, you back on time, and to even go to university, you don't go to university. So
Okay.
I mean, it's a whole challenge, whole problem, man.
Okay.
But
But
I'm trusted in going back to school.
yeah, thank you. The reason I put that so that we're clear, for those of you watching and for those of you who may watch this video after, if you have any interest of wanting to see how you could support Chris with his educational journey, please reach out to me directly. You can also reach out to Chris. He's on Facebook as well. But if you don't know how, please reach out to me and I'll be able to connect you. Again, if you just want to find out what it looks like, still reach out. I can connect you with Chris and you can be able to find out what does it look like, especially around education. As you heard Chris clearly, he feels this will be a big part of his joining of restoration. He feels that this will be a big part of what closure looks like. So, Chris, I will have you give us your parting comments so I can let you go. Thank you. I know you're in exile right now, and I know you're using data as well. So let me let you give us your parting comments and let you go.
much. Thank you so much. And I appreciate you for the work you are doing for the African people. I mean, not just in Liberia, but you are doing a very significant work. And I also want to appreciate all of, I mean, the members of the Kuwo movement. You know, I look forward to working with the Kuwo movement. And I think the Kuwo movement is meant to extraordinary. I mean, across the continent. So we are now in Ghana, even though it's difficult, but we are still optimistic that one day we are going to go somewhere better, and we are going to see how best to achieve what we want to achieve. So we are not perturbed or deterred. Are still re-energized. We are still doing what we would love to do. Still championing social justice, human rights advocacy, defending democracy, and we are doing whole lot of activities here. Yeah. So thank you again for this opportunity, and I do appreciate the time we are spending. I think we narrated our story in a way that people will understand what happened to us, and our story is vivid. It is all on. I mean, you Google my name, you will see who Chris is. You will see. I mean, what I have been doing after Massa or do. You know, so I'm good. Thank you, opportunity, and let me say thank you to those who are watching and those who will watch. I mean, after the show, we say thank you to you for everything, and may Liberia be a very prosperous nation, and also may Liberia prosper in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you, Chris. And with that, I will leave it with you. But for those of you watching, I just want to sum things up here by bringing things home. So we spent some time with Chris telling us a story. And this is what the Kuwo movement is going to be about. We wish Chris well on his journey. We wish him well on all of his effort. And we want to thank him for joining us. Now, those of you who are just coming, thank you. You've been wondering, this is the Kuwo Conversations. And the Kuwo movement is an idea that's been growing quietly. And if you're interested in joining the Kuwo movement, please message me as well. We have a huge planning process going underground, but very soon you'll be hearing more. So the word Kuwo comes from the Wleh language in Liberia, Kuwo, which means our voice. Pele no anga kakaba, Kuwo kanga, nungwai lobangwai, so kukelekwa Kuwo kanga. This is our voice, and that's what Kuwo stands for. And the idea of the Kuwo movement is to really foster nation building through civic engagement. So when you look at our taglines, our title, so driving and inspiring positive change through civic engagement. Many of you know the process of nation building, I always said, it's not a one-time incident or an angry outburst, So it's a long-term systematic form of engagement, of working, of mobilizing, of organizing, of inspiring to get to where we need to get. So the Kuwo movement has started, and we will continue to build. And you have to be willing to commit that the work that you are doing, sometimes you may not even be alive to see its fruition, right? But we are committed to nation building because we have to lay the foundations upon which others can stand tomorrow to continue that work. So welcome to the Kuwo movement. This is the Kuwo Conversations. If you're interested, we have a group page on Facebook. Follow the page, message us, and we will get you connected. For now, we're working behind the scenes. I also want to close up by sharing with you a very exciting news. The Liberian Learning Center. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be witnessing the grand opening of the Liberian Learning Center, December 13, 2024. All of you, my Decemberies that are coming to Liberia, please, there are two events that will be happening. In the morning, we will be at the grand opening ceremony on the Pinsville City Hall compound. For those of you who don't know, the Liberian Learning Center is the first comprehensive learning center in the history of the Republic of Liberia. It will host a public library, a dedicated children's library, a small business incubation center, a radio station, conference rooms, and meeting facilities. Meeting facilities. So rooms, you can book your private event and that kind of stuff. We will also be hosting an indoor recreation facility and an event space as well. So please join us on December 13th. Don't be told. We will be live streaming the event as well for those of you who cannot join. And we have vowed to raise $50,000 that night at the Royal Grand Hotel. So after the opening ceremony in the morning, by the evening, we will all be going to the Royal Grand Hotel in Monrovia for a beautiful evening gala. Bring your dresses, bring your suits, and come to impress. But also come to contribute to history making on that day. I will be there. I will be live, and I'm leading an entire delegation from Canada and Liberia. We talk about nation building. We talk about where we need to go. This is one of it. And I'm super, super excited for what is going to happen. So if you haven't purchased your ticket yet to come to the gala, it's $100 flat. A table of 8 is $1,000 US. You're going to have your own little branding on the table. If you want your own table of 8, that's $1,000 US, and you'll have your customized table with your business name or your company name. We also have sponsorship opportunities. If you're a business and want to sponsor, please hit me up on Messenger, on WhatsApp, on Facebook, and we will see where we can go from there. But ladies and gentlemen, I'm excited. This is the Kuwo movement. This is the Kuwo Conversations. And the show will start going once a week, every Thursday, beginning this Thursday, 4 p.m. Eastern Time. That's 9 p.m. GMT. And the goal of the show will be to profile Liberian stories, African stories, non-African stories of inspiration, of amplifying our voices, of showing the different mediums and means through which we can put our voices out there to foster nation building, to foster healing, to foster reconciliation, but to inspire positive change. And with that, my name is Leo DePolo Johnson, and I'm very pleased to have been your host today with my guest, Christopher Wleh Sivili. Enjoy your weekend and set your dial for Thursday next week at 4 p.m. We'll be right here to get the show rolling. And weekly, every Thursday at 4 p.m., we will be here bringing you inspiring stories, bringing you heroes and heroines, but bringing you everyday people changing their world, everyday people inspiring positive change, and most of all, fostering the attitude, the skills, and the discussions we need to have to drive the process of nation building. Have a good weekend, and I'll see you next Thursday, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 9 p.m. GMT. Bye-bye.